What would you do if 3 fake cops showed up at your door and you realized they were sent by your own HOA to intimidate you? The first knock wasn't gentle. It was the kind that says this isn't a request. Sharp, quick, deliberate. At 7:42 p.m., Simone Givens had just set her dinner plate down on the kitchen counter when it came. She froze, listening. Another knock followed, harder, heavier. Her house sat on a corner lot in a Plano, Texas subdivision. After sunset, the streets went still. Neighbors walked their dogs, streamed their shows. Nobody knocked on doors at night. Simone moved to the hallway, peering through the side window. 2 men stood outside, stiff posture, dark vests, boots, shirts that looked purchased, not issued, badges clipped to their chests. Shiny, but cheap, like something off a surplus website. Police. "Open the door, ma'am," one called, voice flat and a little rushed. Simone didn't answer. Years as a deputy U.S. Marshal had trained her to notice the small things, the way a hand hovers near a pocket, the nervous twitch of an eye. These 2 looked like kids wearing uniforms that didn't fit. "Who sent you?" she asked through the door. "Got a call. Disturbance complaint. From your HOA," the taller one said. Simone almost laughed. Disturbance. She hadn't hosted guests or played loud music. Her house was quieter than most. "If you're real officers," she pressed, "state your department." Silence. Then, "Police department," he muttered. "No city, no county, just police department." That sealed it. She unlocked the storm door, not to let them in, but to lean forward enough for her voice to cut through. "If you're really officers, you'll give me your names and badge numbers." "Lady, don't make this difficult," the shorter one snapped. That phrase was all she needed. No real cop says that to a homeowner on her own porch. That was intimidation, not procedure. "Funny," she said softly. "Difficult is what I do for a living." Calmly, she reached for her leather bag, pulled out a black badge holder and flipped it open. The silver emblem of a U.S. Marshal glinted under the porch light. The reaction was instant. The tall man stiffened. The short one stepped back, color draining from his face. A frantic glance between them, then they bolted, scrambling down the porch to their unmarked sedan and tearing off into the night. Simone exhaled slowly. Not fear, not relief, just irritation. This wasn't random. Someone had set it up, and in her neighborhood, suspects were few. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from her neighbor Carla. "Did 2 officers just leave your house?" "Not real officers," Simone typed back. "Then who were they?" Carla replied. "That's the question," Simone whispered, staring at the empty street. By morning, she was back in her running shoes. As she jogged past picture-perfect lawns and man-made ponds, one thought gnawed at her. Perfect isn't the same as safe. Later, Detective Roland Pierce from the Plano police called. Simone described everything. Their mismatched gear, their car, even the clean hands of the one who claimed to be an officer. "Check if anyone on my HOA board has connections to those 2, she added. That afternoon a letter arrived, white envelope, HOA letterhead. "Noise concerns," it claimed. No signature, no details, just paper intimidation to back up the doorstep stunt. Simone stirred her coffee, staring at the envelope. For years she'd tolerated their nitpicking, but sending fake cops, that crossed a line. And once a line's crossed, ignoring it isn't an option anymore. Late that night her phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. "Stop making this harder than it has to be. Cooperate, and we won't have to come back." Simone's eyes narrowed. She wasn't scared. She was done being quiet. Because if they wanted control, they'd picked the wrong woman. And if you've been gripped by this story, don't forget to subscribe to Drama Lady Files, where real-life power plays, scandals, and true crime-style narratives come alive. Simone stared at the glowing screen. Her first reaction wasn't fear. It was anger. Whoever sent that text believed they could intimidate her like she was. Just another powerless resident afraid of fines and warnings. They had no idea who they were dealing with. She picked up her badge from the table, holding it tight in her hand, the silver glinting against the lamplight. It wasn't just metal. It was every training, every long night on duty, every confrontation she'd survived. This wouldn't be any different. But standing her ground meant stepping into a fight. That was only just beginning, and the people behind it were far more organized than the 2 errand boys who'd run from her porch. The anonymous text stayed on her phone long after she set it down. She paced the living room, the glow from the streetlight spilling in through the blinds. This wasn't random. It was deliberate, targeted, meant to shake her instead of fear. Simone felt the same calm edge she did before a raid, heightened awareness, a readiness for what might come next. But she knew better than to ignore it. She typed the number into a law enforcement database she had access to through work. No match, disposable. Whoever sent it knew enough to cover their tracks. At 10 p.m. there was another knock, lighter this time, almost tentative. Simone's hand hovered near the grip of the firearm at her hip. She peeked through the peephole, Carla holding her phone. "I just got something to look." Carla handed over her screen, a forwarded HOA board email. "We have received multiple complaints about Ms. Givens' property being a disruption to the community. We are investigating further to ensure our neighborhood standards are upheld." "Disruption," Simone muttered. "That's creative. They've never sent emails like this about anyone else." Carla whispered. It feels personal. That's because it is, Simone said, handing back the phone. And Carla, they're counting on everyone staying quiet while they target one person at a time. Carla lowered her voice. People are scared. They fine you for the smallest thing, and if you don't pay, they threaten liens. Most folks don't want to risk it. Simone gave a short laugh. Scared of a few neighbors with clipboards. That fear is exactly what keeps them in power. Carla didn't answer. Her eyes said enough. She wasn't ready to fight them the way Simone was. She muttered a soft goodnight and slipped back across the street. Simone locked the door again and went straight for her laptop, pulling up the HOA bylaws, reading line by line. Most of it was standard maintenance requirements and architectural approvals. But tucked between the lines were clauses giving the board sweeping authority to enforce rules, hire contractors, even pursue legal action without resident approval. Power written into fine print. Her thoughts were interrupted by a call from Detective Pierce. Miss Givens, I need to ask, have you received any contact from these men since the incident? Not directly, she replied, but I just got a text message, and my neighbor received an HOA email calling me a disruption. That escalates it, Pierce sighed. I'll need you to forward me the text and the email. We're already looking into the rental car, but whoever's backing this is covering their tracks. Of course they are, Simone said. They've probably been doing this to people for years, just not to someone who can push back. There was a pause. Then Pierce's voice dropped. Off the record, be careful. HOAs aren't supposed to operate like this. But when you mix money, power, and people who don't like being challenged, things get messy. Simone almost smiled. Detective Messy is my specialty. After the call, she stared at her badge on the table. Most people in her position would have called it a night, maybe even considered moving away. But moving wasn't in her vocabulary. She hadn't built her life to run from bullies in fake uniforms. Just as she turned off the lights, another text buzzed in. Same number, last chance. Stop asking questions. Simone didn't reply. She took a screenshot, forwarded it to Pierce, and set the phone face down. Lying in bed, her mind raced. Who exactly was behind this? The HOA president. A group of board members. Someone else entirely using the HOA as cover. They wanted to see if she'd fold under pressure, if she'd take the hint and back down quietly like so many others probably had. But Simone wasn't built to back down. She rolled onto her side, eyes on the badge resting on the nightstand. If they wanted a fight, they'd pick the wrong house. The assumption had always been that Simone would fold like everyone else. That's what bullies count on, silence. But instead of ignoring the threat, she typed her first reply. Try me. She hit send. And sometimes answering back doesn't end things, it escalates them. Escalation came quickly. The board's emergency session had been tense, but the regularly scheduled monthly meeting was another beast. Flyers circulated, notices posted. By the time Simone entered the subdivision clubhouse Tuesday night, it was standing room only. Folding chairs were packed. Dozens leaned against the walls, arms crossed, eyes curious. She slipped into the front row. If Kellum was going to come for her again, she wouldn't give him the advantage of distance. Kellum, the HOA president, sat at the long table up front. On either side were board members, Simone, a retired teacher with a sharper tongue than chalk, and Daryl Pritchard, a real estate agent who loved the sound of his own voice. Kellum tapped the mic, rehearsed and polished. Good evening. Tonight, we're here to address matters of community importance. The role of this board is to maintain the integrity of our neighborhood. Simone raised her hand, her voice cut like glass. Mr. Kellum, before you start with speeches, maybe we should begin with the men who showed up at my door dressed as police officers. Care to comment? The crowd murmured, heads turned. Kellum's tie twitched under his hand. Miss Givens, as I've stated, the board has no involvement in that incident. Funny, Simone replied, because Detective Pierce traced the rental car they used back to a man your board paid for security. A man named Travis Blake. Sound familiar? Gasps rippled through the room. Janice stiffened. Daryl leaned forward into his mic. This is not the place for wild accusations. It's not an accusation, Simone shot back. It's fact, and if you think intimidation will silence me, you don't know who you're dealing with. From the back, a voice rose. thomasrivera.com/steadyloud. I've got copies of their letters to fake violations, false claims. They tried to fine me into silence. Simone isn't the first target, she's just the first who fought back. The room erupted. Chatter, agreement, nervous denial. Kellum banged the gavel. Order, this is a formal meeting, not a circus. Simone didn't budge. Tell me, Kellum, why do you think you can run this neighborhood like your personal kingdom? Is it money, control, or just the satisfaction of watching people bow? For the first time, Kellum's mask cracked. His voice sharpened. You don't understand how hard it is to keep this community together. Without structure, there's chaos. Structure, Simone fired back. This structure isn't hiring imposters to play cop. Structure isn't fabricating violations. That's not structure, that's criminal. Silence heavy, even Janice shifted uncomfortably in her chair. From the far side of the room, Geraldine McCoy, clutching her poodle, stood up. If what she's saying is true, we deserve answers. This board works for us, not the other way around. Agreement spread like sparks through dry grass. Kellum's gavel hit wood again, but his authority sounded hollow. When he finally adjourned the meeting, people didn't rush out. They stayed, whispering in clusters. For the first time, he didn't look like the most powerful man in the room. Outside, under the yellow wash of a streetlight, Kellum cornered Simone, his smile gone, his voice low. "You embarrassed me. That was reckless. People here need order. They need me order," Simone said coldly. "No, they need freedom from fear." And tonight, they saw fear break. Kellum leaned close. "Fear is stronger than respect, and fear will win." Simone met his eyes without blinking. Fear only works until someone stands up. Tonight, they saw someone stand. The standoff ended with headlights sweeping the lot, Thomas pulling up in his car. Simone walked away, leaving Kellum under the buzzing lamp, his shoulders rigid, his empire cracking. The retaliation started the next morning. Bright orange slips, bogus violations, whisper campaigns. But by then, neighbors were comparing notes, screenshots, letters, documents. One voice had sparked another, and another, until silence was no longer the rule, because fear only survives in the dark. And Simone had dragged it into the light. If you want more stories where courage exposes corruption, don't forget to subscribe to Drama Lady Files, where silence breaks and truth speaks loudest.